Welcome to the Fear and Greed Business Interview. I'm Sean Aylmer. We have some great listeners to this podcast across a whole range of different jobs, and sometimes those listeners get in touch to share their thoughts on stories or to bring our attention to issues in the sector. Last week, we received an email from one of our listeners, a financial advisor named Andy Darroch. Andy's email said, quite simply, that financial advice is broken in Australia, and here's what it'll take to fix it. This is, of course, general information only and doesn't take into account your specific circumstances. Andy is the Director of Independent Wealth Advice. Andy, welcome to Fear and Greed.
Thanks very much for having me, Sean.
Let's jump into it. Why is financial advice broken? Where's it gone wrong?
Look, it's a really, really simple issue. It's broken because it's 90% sales and 10% advice. You hear all these things. The problem isn't over-regulation. It's not a lack of advisors. The problem is the way the industry operates. And the way the industry operates, in my opinion, is fees first and clients second. Now, this doesn't just provide bad outcomes for clients. It means the industry directs all its energy not to giving advice and helping clients, but generating fees. And this in turn means it's just a radically inefficient use of time and resources.
Okay, so how do you change that, given that, you say it's not regulation, but there is a lot of regulation on financial advisors. There's a lot of paperwork for them to do. There's a lot of continuous study to do. For them to make enough money to make it worth their while, how do you change things? How do you actually make it so that advisors can think more about advice rather than fees?
Yeah, and that's a really challenging question. And in reference to what you say there, how do they make enough money? Well, that's a valid question. Do VCR salesmen still exist? Do you still go to a rabbit photo to get your things developed? So I think in some way, shape and form, advisors their business models are definitely stuck in the past and a bit dinosaurish. But yeah, with respect to that, I think they make money by changing their business models. And again, that comes back to actually working and providing advice. So I always say to people, you should pay for financial advice in the same way that you pay any other professional, be it a doctor, a lawyer, or a plumber. You should get paid when you do work. Now, again, the industry is just fixated on seeking out ongoing fees and commissions and that kind of thing. So I think what you might find is that if an advisor were to focus and practitioner in a similar vein as, again, any kind of medical professional, a lawyer, an accountant, that they might find that they're able to serve a greater number of clients and in turn give profits not to just their clients but themselves.
Okay, but isn't part of the problem there is the upfront fee? So if I go to a financial advisor and I pay $3,000 or $4,000 up front versus a commission after 12 months that just slowly seeps away out of my balance of $3,000 or $4,000, I'm actually more likely to pay that latter rather than the upfront thing.
Yeah, definitely. And that's what makes it such a magnificent business model for advisors. And it's not just the sticker shock of, what do you mean you want to charge me $3,000 to, fill me up with insurance and some third-rate super fund. It's the fact that a really excellent sales tool of the industry is the whole notion of percentage-based fees. If I sit in front of you and say, look, you'll pay me 1% of your balance, you think, okay, that sounds fair. I win, they win, I lose, they lose, etc. But suddenly when you put those numbers into dollars, they hit home a lot more. So it's intentional strategy that things are sold in that fashion. And again, with respect to the upfront versus the long term, you can read a product disclosure statement of anything in Australia, an ASIC mandate that, the impact of 1% in fees over a 30-year period can be something like 20% of the balance. Now, that's presuming an exact rate of return, but the long-term impacts of these fee arrangements are nothing short of enormous. And again, going back to, that example of getting paid up front versus retainer. Well, if you buy a mortgage from someone or an insurance policy from them, are they doing any work for the next 18 months? If I put you in just a simple portfolio of ETFs or, investment funds, are they actually doing any work? If you're seeing a lawyer for whatever reason, do you continue to pay them ongoing, a retainer? Do you pay a commission to the gentleman or person that sold you your car? Probably not, I would say. So I think financial advice have got themselves a little bit of a cushy moment where they're, just at the end of this kind of arrangements, which don't really fit anymore in the 21st century in my mind.
Stay with me, Andy. We'll be back in a moment. My guest today is financial advisor Andy Darroch, Director of Independent Wealth Advice. So how do financial advisors then, if they should be paid up front, so I get that, how do they convince people like me to pay them the $3,000 up front?
Well, yeah, and that's a good question. By the way, I think you'll find that an overwhelming majority of advisors still do charge that upfront fee as well. It's just that there's an ongoing component as well. And they should do it on the basis that anyone seeking out advice presumably wants an answer to a question. Is my super working hard enough for me? Do I need insurance? I've got something that I need to invest. How should I go about doing that? I'm wondering if I'm on track for my retirement. Are there manners in which I can reduce my tax? All these kind of questions. So any advisor should be able to say, look, in order to answer that question, Sean or Mr. and Mrs. Client, we're looking at XYZ worth of work. In order to do that, we've got to produce what is got to be the most monotonous creation in humanity, which is called a statement of advice, et cetera, et cetera. It will answer these questions in that fashion. Again, the problem that comes from that is that, again, everyone thinks, all right, excellent, I've got myself a little client now for the gravy train element, which is as a part of answering that question, Sean, let's get into 1% of the balance paying me in perpetuity. And again, one of the kind of noxious side effects of that is that really that doesn't just disadvantage the client from a fee perspective, it also kind of pushes the industry in one direction. So you'll find, for example, if I sit down with a client and I've got an opportunity to put them in a portfolio that I manage, let's just say that they've got $1 million in their super investment portfolio. If I direct that to something like an industry fund, I'm never going to see another dollar of that. Versus if I direct it to one of the many advisor kind of practitioned and operated products, well, look at that. I've got myself a $10,000 retainer for, an indefinite period. So, and that kind of ties into another big issue, but also incredible opportunity for Aussies, which is that you can look globally and everywhere's got a retirement system, but something that really is standalone is industry funds. And specifically, it is the unbelievable investment performance they deliver year after year after year for their clients. So fees aside, we've got this issue where you're kind of getting a lot of the advised clients getting out of the best investment products for the wrong reasons.
Okay. I'm going to take this from a different tact here. So we're big advocates of everyone getting good, independent, professional financial advice. Why does it matter so much that people do get professional advice?
Simply for the fact that you don't know what you don't know, right? So again, financial advice is not all that difficult to craft. It's not something that requires a tremendous amount of education traditionally, and good advice can make massive differences. So again, that might be saving tax. It might be preparing for someone's retirement. There's kind of, trigger points and catalysts for seeking advice. And again, if I'm planning for someone's retirement, it's typically a plan, as in it's a one-off thing. There might be catch-up meetings and annual reviews in the future, but for the most part, I would say that the majority of people, subject to their circumstances and the relative complexity of them, that an advisor is someone that you should see every 10 or 15 years or every 5 years once you've got a plan in place. Because once you've got that retirement set up at 65, do you think that they're going to make radical wholesale changes at 67? I would argue no. And particularly, if you're selecting a really top of the pops investment solution, which I would, typically go for an industry fund, well, I'm not too concerned whether Credit Suisse have got themselves in hot water or Silicon Valley Bank is having a moment, or the yuan or whatever it might be, because you've got someone with far greater resources and far greater expertise managing the money. So I can just focus on moving to the next client. But again, it depends on the person's circumstances. There's a lot of reasons too. Planning for retirement is the big one. Also for people who are starting families, generating extra cash, looking to invest, all those kinds of things are all triggers for seeking advice.
Okay, so wrapping this up, what should a person expect when they go and see a financial advisor?
Well, this sounds like a pretty crazy thing to say, but they should expect advice, not sales. And again, I'm rather biased, but I'd accuse the industry of not delivering on that. So again, what they should seek is answers to those questions. Are you doing everything you can be doing to maximizing your wealth creation? Are you using superannuation effectively? Are your insurances fit for purpose? Are we reducing tax where possible, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? So financial planners are great at purporting to be, this omnipotent presence on anything financial, when in reality, we've got a fairly narrow bandwidth. We're generalists in the tax sphere. We're specialists in all things superannuation, insurance, and retirement planning, and then further to investments as well. So what people should expect is answers to their questions and comfort that they're doing the right things, that they're on the right track, and that they've got clarity essentially on what their future looks like. Financially, that is.
Andy, thank you for talking to Fear and Greed.
Excellent. Thanks very much for having me, guys. I love listening to the podcast every morning.
Thank you. That was financial advisor Andy Darrogh, Director of Independent Wealth Advice. This is the Fear and Greed Business Interview. Join us every morning for the full episode of Fear and Greed, Australia's best business podcast. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your day.